Guys, if this is lame, if this is like really fucking lame and this is not interesting to any of you at all, please let me know in the comments so I don't react to this shit anymore. I'm just trying not to get burnt out on Cumtown stuff. So let's go.
Marriage originally was designed culturally for the purposes of maintaining land ownership.
I kind of want to
clans.
like. I actually, after we get into this discussion, I'd really like to know some of the history of marriage. Like why it's continued to be around. Like if this is something that didn't have societal utility, I think that we
who were the first people that were like, this is going so great, we should get the government involved. You know, like that's fucking weird.
It does seem weird that's an interesting thing. Even when my wife were gonna get married, I was like, I really don't care that the government knows about this.
Right.
It's important to me that you and I know about this, and we are committing to one another. And I think for them, I think that the idea that the government knows about it makes it feel more real because of like societal expectations or whatever.
But you know what's an interesting thing I've always found fascinating is if you said to me, you know, Jim, I'm thinking about buying an airplane. If I said, oh, really? Why? That's not a rude question.
Yeah.
You would say, oh, you know, I fly a lot and it'd be nice. I wanted to learn how to do it. Okay. If you're dating a girl for a certain period of time, you say to me, you know, Jim, I'm thinking about getting married. And I go, why?
Yeah.
That's rude. Why is that rude?
Yeah.
Like, this is a technology that fails 56% of the fucking time.
Yeah.
And let's say there's another 10, 20% that stays with it for the kids or because they don't want to give away half their shit.
Yeah.
Why is it rude to say to someone, you guys are getting along, you're in love, you're having fun.
Yeah.
Why do you want to get the government involved?
Yeah.
Like, why? What? My whole thing is,
Yeah.
what is the
what the
problem
fuck?
to which marriage is a solution?
Man. Yo, so I was at my old job, and next door to the studio I worked at was another studio. And they were cool dudes. One of them was a young guy, and it was the young guy, his coworker, and a couple girls. And one of the girls, I guess, was his fiance. And he said, yeah, this is my fiance. He introduced me. Cool people. And said that he's getting married. And without me even thinking about it, just because I'm pretty upfront and blunt, I was like, oh, why are you getting married, bro? You're young. And everybody got quiet. And I said, yeah, I've been married before once, and it just didn't work out. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just genuinely fuck, man. God. Genuinely curious. Like, bro, he was in his early 20s managing a fitness studio. Like, he has his whole life ahead of him, and he's gonna get married. Like, yeah, one of the guys thought it was funny and started laughing, like, but the girls, especially his fiance, just got super quiet. Like I had disrespected his relationship or something like that. Like, man, I don't care. Maybe I was trying to save him by asking him why.
Like, what is the problem to which marriage is like anything else in your life? You could answer that. What is the problem to which this is a solution? It's hard to hold water in my hands, so we need a container for it. What is the problem to which this is a solution? It's nice to be able to talk to people when they're not in the room. Okay, what is the problem to which marriage is a solution? I'm lonely?
No,
marriage doesn't solve that problem for women.
To answer your question, I thought you brought up a really great point when it came to like allocating time with the kids in a divorce, which was like, if a dad has every other weekend, it's kind of looked at like, oh yeah, okay, he's got a job, he's a divorced dad. If a mom is every other weekend, she's looked at like a psychopath, right? So I do think that women that are
like
in long-term
relationships
but aren't married feel a societal scrutiny.
Sure.
Will he not commit to me? Does he not really love you? Is he trying to protect his money or his assets or something like that? And I think
the question is who, he says societal scrutiny, which I think it's true. There is a societal scrutiny if a woman's with a man for a long time and they don't get married. But who is usually the group of people that's scrutinizing that? The older generation where marriage actually meant something, and other women. Girl, what do you mean he didn't marry you at? What do you mean? Has been how long? Girl. Mm-hmm. I mean, not all girls talk like that, but that's just how I picture a girl talking in my head. It's a black girl. Yeah. For some reason, this imaginary scenario I have in my head involves a black girl talking to her girlfriend. Or maybe she's not black. Maybe she's a white girl that talks like that.
I think a lot of times that informs their decision to quote unquote get the government involved. It's less about the government. It's more about like, how will society view me as this person's partner? Like, and is it a lack of commitment? Which obviously now, like if we remove the emotion from it, we can unpack and go, yeah, it doesn't change anything in that relationship. And you can literally not get married, but you can sign a contract with some lawyers about how assets can be distributed. Like you can have the government play no part of it.
And if you, by the way, don't even know what role the government plays in that, it's kind of a fiction. And by the way, like, you trust that Mark is married.
Yeah.
Have you checked the fucking paperwork ever?
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Like, honestly,
right.
Like, if you ever gone to a wedding and after at the end gone, lovely ceremony, great pigs in the blanket at the cocktail hour, you see the paperwork?
Yeah.
They go, well, I'm sorry, well, no, the marriage license. I just want to make sure. Like, your parents might not be fucking married. But you know what? Did you check the paperwork?
I've never looked.
We know about the nurse outfit. We don't know about the paperwork.
Yeah, there's
so
You're speaking logically.
By the way, have as many fucking weddings as you want, guys. Like, getting married's lots of fun. It's a great party. I'm all for it. I fucking love weddings because I like pigs in blankets. But the truth is, like, does that mean you actually have to go sign a marriage license and get the government involved?
But let's real quick. Let's just divide this up. What you're
and really the first person that, before I heard of this guy, before I heard of who's the guy right now that's kind of at the top of the single lifestyle list? Man, Greg Adams. Before I listened to Greg Adams, before I listened to this guy, I would listen to Tom Likas, if you know who that is. That's an old school dude that used to be on the radio. But yeah, he was asking the same thing, like, you can live with somebody and not be married. You can be with somebody and not be married. Marriage is pretty much just a government contract.
You're not saying that having a partner that you guys dedicate your lives to each other and grow a family with is bad.
Not only is it not bad, I think it's the best thing in the world.
It's incredibly important.
Yeah,
we all need
it's the
to
best
do.
pair
And
bonds, like relationships, love. Like what is better than love?
Nothing. I guess what happens is I think when people hear the word, like, why would you get married? They often assume that you're like, have a few girlfriends, or don't commit to one person, or it's not going to work out. Right. You're pro relationship. You're 100%. Pro like.
I'm pro monogamy.
You're pro monogamy.
I'm
pro family.
I'm pro people building families together.
Yeah.
Look, there's a reason why throughout the history of humankind, pair bonds, monogamy, this exists for biological reasons. It exists for social reasons.
Yeah.
But if I saw a correlation between love and marriage, and love being sustained by the fact that you've married, I would be the biggest fan of marriage in the world.
Right.
What I see is the opposite. But what I see is people dating and in love who then sign on for a contract that they do not understand at all.
Yes.
Right.
And then I think it becomes almost antagonistic to it because our society is considers it so acceptable. Come on, listen, look at every group of women you've ever seen out who are married, okay?
It's kind of like, I was married once upon a time, you might not know this. And I got lucky. When she wanted a divorce, she didn't want shit. She just, imagine being such a terrible husband or wife that whenever you guys are getting divorced, the person's like, look, I don't want shit. I just want to get the fuck out of here. She didn't want shit. I got lucky in that end of things, but I didn't know what I was signing when I went to the goddamn city hall or whatever the fuck to sign the certificate and all that shit. I didn't read any of the paperwork. I just signed the name where it said, we sign here, you want to be married to this person, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have an attorney guiding me through the process. I didn't have anybody tell me I needed to get a prenup. Even if I didn't have much money or anything like that, it's still important to get one. Nobody. It's like when you hit accept on the terms and conditions. And then whenever your shit hits the fan and you're getting a divorce, then all of a sudden you pay attention to what was in that paperwork.
And one of them is not married. And the one who's not married is talking about a guy who she just started dating, and they all are, oh my God, he sounds so great, he's so wonderful, it's so great, oh my God, what did he, oh, he did that, he's so lovely. Yeah. And then when they talk about their husbands, oh, he's such a, I mean, you know, and then he comes home, and all that is the guy that she's talking about a couple of years down the road. Like, marriage becomes very antagonistic to this situation, says the guy who's been married how many years now?
I don't know.
Like, okay, so the reality is, like, listen, I'm telling you, the previews is always the best part of the movie.
No. What I'm trying to say is, specifically,
especially nowadays,
when everybody knows that you're married, it's no, like, you'd have to be a psychopath to walk into a room of your friends and be like, my wife and I did the most amazing thing, and she's the kindest person. That's not what we want to hear about. We want to hear, like you said, like when you, as a divorce attorney, and you walk into a party, you're like, tell me the drama, tell me the craziest thing. So I'm coming in with the funny shit, which is the drama. When you're dating a new person, there's no drama yet. It's like, we went on one date, he beat me. That never happened. So it's just like, oh, what's this?
I wouldn't say that that's never happened, but...
Sex, what's it like? Sure, is he good? Is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and we miss that euphoria. Not that the love fades, but it shifts from euphoria to a different love.
And by the way, what it shifts to can also be way better than that euphoria.
I think my relationship with my wife has gotten better since.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that will tell you that. And by the way, at its best, that's what happens in a relationship, is you give up novelty in exchange for a depth of connection, a person who understands you, a person who, look, this all makes sense to me. Again, the question I have is, how does the government get involved in that? And does the institution of marriage
real quick,
add value to it? Like, I genuinely believe what you are saying about how you feel about your wife.
Yeah.
If you had not married her and you hadn't signed that contract, you would still feel that way.
What I can say in your favor is that maybe law hasn't caught up to society. Society has gotten more egalitarian, gender roles wise, equality wise for men and women. But especially 30, 40, 50 years ago, there wasn't that. So women needed that security. Right. And I think that's still left over. I don't think marriage has...
They still need it now. So here's my argument against what the fuck he's saying about how it's different now. It is different now, but they still need that security. Because nowadays, it might not be as necessary where, like, the man has to go out and work and the woman has to stay home because she's not able to work because of whatever reasons. That used to be a thing. Women still rely on men these days for retirement. I hate to say it, but women aren't very good at saving for retirement. They're just not. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't believe they are. You can check up the data. Look up the data on your own, but they're still required for security, financial security in the later years. Yeah, so it's just different.
No place, but I definitely understand women's need for it more than men because they're still coming from... This equality thing is relatively recent.
My attitude about tradition, because really marriage is a tradition. It's a societal tradition. And there's really two ways to look at tradition, and I think they're both valid, okay? One is a tradition is something that worked in the past because there's reasons for it. And maybe the people before us knew some things that we haven't figured out yet because we're younger than them in the scheme of things. The other way you can look at tradition is peer pressure exerted by dead people. Okay? That's really what tradition very often is.
I wanted to go back to that, what he said.
Maybe the people before...
Just speaking of equality, people think that equality means having the same exact thing. But I'll give you an example. If you go to the grocery store, you see you need to get milk or whatever, the fucking oat milk. For whatever type of milk you drink, man. you need some milk. The milk costs fucking $3 or some shit. You go to the register, you give them the milk to scan it. They scan the milk and say $3. And then they give you the milk and you give them $3. $3 and milk are different, but the value is equal. You're giving them the equal value of the item. Milk is worth $3. You give somebody $3, you get milk. You give somebody milk, they'll give you $3. You get what I'm saying? They're both equal. They're not the same thing, but they're still equal. Just because something is different doesn't mean they aren't equal.
For us knew some things that we haven't figured out yet because we're younger than them in the scheme of things. The other way you can look at tradition is peer pressure exerted by dead people. Okay. That's really what tradition very often is it's peer pressure from dead people. Why are we doing it this way? Because my great-grandmother did it that way. Your great-grandmother didn't have a smartphone. Your great-grandmother did a whole bunch of things differently, some of which, by the way, make as much, if not more sense now, but some of which make no sense anymore. And how have we evolved as a culture to the point where if you said, my wife is my property, she was her father's property, and then he handed her to me in exchange for me giving something to her, and now I own her.
Sounds pretty fire, to be
Yeah,
it does sound fire.
Some people would have an issue with it, okay? Yet,
but they're property.
What is a
Make marriage great again.
wedding ceremony? Most wedding ceremonies gives away the bride. It's symbolic of things that most women would find terribly offensive. But because we put all these cultural things around it, it's like, oh yes, buying a woman an engagement ring. Like, how many women have you met that are so feminist that they go, I'm not accepting you giving me some expensive thing as a way of purchasing? Fuck that! You could be a Bella Abzug feminist and you would still be like, oh yeah, no, I want a big fucking rock and it better not be lab made. You know, like that's how it works.
I mean, I like.
And isn't the ring supposed to symbolize the link in a chain? So that's like, yes, I'll be here. I'll accept your... Oh, man.
Christmas presents.
Yeah, sure.
It's the same shit. It doesn't make any sense.
Exact same.
But we like nice things, right?
And there's no problem with that.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't then create a whole fiction as to why this is good for society.
No. I think what we agree on is two people coming together to share love and then potentially raising a family together and not leaving each other to go fuck other people and create other families at the same time.
I think kids is the biggest thing.
Exactly. It is really good.
But then you don't need his point to the lawyer's point and to what Tom Likas would tell people all the time. You don't need marriage to do that. How many people are in relationships right now where they live together, they don't sleep with other people, they're committed to each other, and they're not fucking married? Maybe they're planning to get married. They're one is proposed to the other and just they're waiting till the wedding date, but they're not married. You can do all that shit without being married.
Beneficial for society.
I think we can all agree on that.
And let's just use the term marriage for that.
Okay.
If, for example, every marriage required a prenup, meaning you couldn't get married unless you had agreed on the terms of that marriage. Now we've removed the government doing the prenup, which it seems to me is your biggest concern.
Yes.
You love love, you love people coming together, you love them creating families, and it's really important for society. What you don't love are these rules imposed on us that might be antiquated or not favorable for either party.
Well said.
So you're a marriage
exactly correct.
So what you want to do is, so I think what you're telling me, just because I don't want it to seem like you're anti-marriage, you're pro what we assume marriage is, which is this union, without this antiquated gunk that is then imposed on us if it doesn't go well.
If it doesn't go well. What my attitude is, by the way, and if you want to buy into any of the antiquated gunk, you have every right to.
And you put it in your prenup.
And this person who you've picked out of 8 billion other options, you're saying, this is my person. And who is more qualified than the two of you to agree on the rule set?
I think reframing thing, and I'm sure you've done this in every single meeting, I'm more talking to the audience, but like, I think us reframing marriage in that way and having like a real cool, understanding, and fair conversation about what would make us both comfortable in this. And then you learn a lot about each other.
By the way, and that's the point. See,
and that's,
to me, that is the point.
Yeah.
Because that's...
See, a lot of people think a prenup means automatically off the bat, it means that my shit is my shit and you don't get any of it. A prenup is a prenuptial agreement. It could be anything on there. You could put pretty much anything on a prenup. You could put hey, when we get divorced, you get a flat fee of $20,000 and nothing else. You whatever. I said $20,000. I guess a lot of fucking money to some people, but that's, you can put anything in there. Really, whatever the fuck you want. So it's not just a cut and dry, I keep my shit, you keep your shit type thing. You can put whatever the fuck you want in a prenup. And as long as you both agree to the terms, it could be anything.
It's a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
Even if you don't end up doing a prenup.
Yeah.
Having a conversation about, hey, what do we owe each other?
Yeah.
What does this mean to you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect of me? Because I want to meet your expectations.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
And then you learn a lot about each other through that process, because if some guy is marrying a girl, then they have to do this prenup process, because that's part of the marriage. The government basically says this, hey, our rules are kind of fucked up. We're going to give you a baseline. Use some, don't use some, but we recommend you go get an attorney. And maybe there's even like a public office where they can do it. I don't know if that's...
It doesn't even have to be that complicated.
But so it's basically, so you go do it. And then you can learn a lot. If the guy goes, by the way, in this prenup, I want to make sure that you don't deviate within 10 pounds of your weight right now. You'll learn what's really important to that guy. And then
you can put that in the fucking prenup. I'm not joking. You can put in a prenup that if she gains a certain weight or something like that, that the marriage is over. Look that up. I'm pretty sure you can do that.
I mean, don't you want to know that before you marry this fucking guy?
And then you might go, I don't want to get married to this guy.
Or she says to you, well, you know, if you earn less than X number of dollars,
I don't want to be with you.
Well, I'd like to have that conversation before we've signed up for that contract.
So I think that's like a very fair way of approaching it. But I like this idea that you're not against the union. And I think a lot of times when there's criticism of marriage, people think it's criticism of two people starting a family and loving each other. That's not it. We need that for society.
Look, you know,
that's a good tradition.
Saying I do isn't saying I can. It's saying I'll try.
Right.
At best.
Right.
At best.
Yeah.
You know, like at best, what you say when you say I do is you're saying, I'm making you a promise.
Yeah.
And if you're not fucking 3, you know people break promises, right?
Yeah.
So really what you're saying when you make a promise is, I'm going to really try.
I'm going to try my best.
I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to love you. I'm going to try my best to take everything that you bring to this relationship and see it in good faith.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to attribute negative intentions. I'm going to cheer for you. And you're going to cheer for me. And I'm going to see your blind spots. And when I have to call you out, I'm going to do it with love. And I'm going to try to say to you, babe, I think this is going to hurt you long term, what you're doing right now. Like, what is more beautiful than that?
No,
Who
it's
would
awesome.
disagree with that?
It's awesome.
But again, like, why not call those terms out in advance and have that conversation?
I think this is a super healthy way of looking at marriage. And if you're telling me right now that the legislation has already changed to adjust some of the antiquated ideas that were there to obviously protect women, but now are no longer needed, what you're basically saying is the government is going, hey, we got to update the prenup. If the government has a prenup, they're basically going, marriages deserve prenups.
Right. And the government, by the way, is changing it, but they're changing it the way the government changes things, which is way late in the game.
Yeah.
So it's like they don't catch up.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why
Way
the IRS's lawyers
Yeah.
and the tax lawyers that get paid millions of dollars, the tax lawyers that get paid millions of dollars are always 4 steps ahead of these fucking guys.
And they're
like, the top of the class goes to work for these firms. Why? Because they have every incentive to do that. So for me, saying, you know what, I trust the government so much that I know they'll change the law to protect me, that's the most naive thing I've ever heard of human beings say.
And even if you want to look at the government acting in good faith, they're like, hey, there are these people go, hey, we got a problem. There are these divorced women. They're fucking homeless right now, or they're going back to living with their parents. Like, they're struggling to eat. They can't even take care of their kids. So now they're not around their kids. We got to do something to protect that. They overcorrect.
And this is the mistake. Like, people come into this and they think prenups were designed for wealthy people only, right? And by the way, there's a reason why. Because look, there's times where a person comes to the...
Before I had got married, I was talking about a prenup. I was in the military. I had, if you know anything about the military, you had the GI Bill. I had full medical benefits, pretty much guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks. I didn't know if I was going to stay in for longer than my contracted term or shorter than my contracted term or what. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I was like just talking to a group of shipmates. I was on a fucking Navy ship, bunch of dudes. I'm not gay. I'm not gay. And one of them goes, why would you get a prenup if she's studying to be a doctor and she's going to make more than you? Why would you want a prenup for that? And at the time I thought like, hey man, you're right. But looking back, I was like, that's not the point. I've let people influence me into not doing shit because I didn't know any better.
Marriage, they have a tremendous amount of assets.
I want to talk about that.
And they say, look, I've got a ton of money.
Yeah.
You know, if in an alternate universe, you are you now at your level of success.
Yes.
And you meet a lovely young woman and you say, you know what, let's get it, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Do you mean if you get divorced in 3 months, she should get half of everything? That's fucking crazy. That's
Yes.
crazy.
And I think even the government would say that that's not how
true.
it
Yes,
goes.
that isn't how it works.
Yeah, but maybe there was a time where it was.
Well, and
it
there's
changed
still
it.
very complicated things, which is how guys like me make a lot of money. Because what happens is we have what's called transmutation, which is if you had a separate property asset, meaning something you owned before the marriage, and then you get married and you mix an asset that you earned during the marriage or income earned during the marriage with your premarital money, you turn
that
the
thing
separate into
the
marital. So we have what's called the marital presumption, which is basically, so like think of it, I always tell clients, think about it like, you know, your separate property premarital money is like a bowl of water. And marital money is like a drop of red dye. You drop that in, you can't take it back out. The whole thing's pink.
So if you're doing renovations on it with your marital money, now all of a sudden you're saying the property becomes
it's all marital. Transmuted.
But you could make the argument that by doing those renovations, it increased the value of that property $5 million.
100%. And you know, I get paid a lot of money per hour to make that argument.
Right.
And then the other lawyer gets paid a bunch of money by the hour to say, no, there was no donative intent, there was no consideration.
But the fact that there's even a conversation.
So the reality is why are we making money on this? Why couldn't the two of you in advance just sit down and say, hey, you know what? Let's put aside some, like, let's decide the rule set. If we put it in your name, it's this. If we put it in joint sets, we'll split 50-50. If we use premarital money, we'll do it.
Andrew looks like he uncomfortable letting other people talk. Like he wants to control the conversation. And right now, I'm kind of doing the body language shift. Look at him shift and pick his ear. I'm not trying to be too critical, but it seems like whenever somebody else is in control of the conversation here and somebody else is the attention, he gets a little bit uncomfortable and starts fidgeting. And I don't know.
It this way, have that fucking conversation.
This is great. I love how, like, obviously you're an amazing communicator and you're very spirited about this, but like the spirit to me seems to come from this place of, guys, this could be so much easier
and so much better. So much better.
But there is this negative stigma about a prenup because we only think about these people with tons of assets that are doing it to protect it from a gold digger. We don't think about people who are building a life, like in a lot of our circumstances, we don't really have that. I mean, we're doing okay, but we don't have like tons of money. And then once we get married, we start building this amazing life. And that's probably the majority of people that are getting married. The majority of people aren't coming from $300 million.
No. And by the way, like people that don't have as much are the ones who really have to worry about how do we divide it and protect it. Because if you got hundreds of millions of dollars,
give her $20 million.
Like, but if you're in a situation where, like most people, you're kind of basically getting by, well, now you're gonna have 2 electric bills and 2 cable bills and 2 everything. So to me, like, you know, what's so funny is when early in my career...
I'm sorry to cut you here, but it is really interesting to, like, understand your perspective on this. You're not against the institution. You're like, it could be so much more simple.
It just could be better.
And you've gone through so many where you're like, we're still bickering over this because you guys didn't make this very easy decision early on.
And I just don't think it makes it unromantic. Like, Like, we all know
How do you
life
cross that bridge?
ends.
Yeah, how would you?
Does that mean life's not, like, did you ever go like, well, I'm going to die someday, so I might as well just die now? Like, no, like, the beauty is going through the process. Like, you're watching a movie and someone says, oh, the movie's going to end. You don't go, well, fuck it, I'm not even going to watch it. Like, no, the beauty is to watch the movie and know that this is a temporary thing. Look, every marriage ends.
Yeah.
It ends in death or in divorce.
Yeah.
Your marriage will end, I promise. I hope it ends in death. That's a weird thing to say to a person. I hope your marriage ends in death. But I do. I hope that's how your marriage ends. Because the only two options are just going to end in death or divorce.
Right, right.
So you have life insurance.
Yeah.
No one ever would look at you and go, you're so morbid with that life insurance. Like, why would you think you have to do that? I'm protecting these people that I love. Like, I know something's good. Okay, so what is wrong with two people?
Damn, there's more to that, but I think that's enough. So like I said in the beginning of the video, this shit's lame, boring. You guys don't like this shit, please let me know in the comments. I just don't want to get burnt out with posting the same style of shit. Trying to expand my audience, man, and teach. Oh, fuck. Check out Tom Likas and check out Greg Adams. Greg Adams is kind of like the modern day black Tom Likas, if I can put it into words. And this guy, I seen him before on this like a white underbelly or something like that. He was doing an interview on some channel where he's like everything's in black and white. But yeah, I got nothing else to say. Goodbye.